The Business of Agriculture is brought to you by Land Trust. Have you heard how landowners are increasing profitability by adding recreation to their portfolio of land use? Millions of outdoor recreators seek wide open spaces for birdwatching, photography, hunting, fishing, horseback riding, and many other farm and ranch activities. Landowners are partnering with the Recreation Access Network, Land Trust. Land Trust is an online platform connecting recreators with landowners for outdoor experiences on their land to increase profitability. Visit landtrust.com/BOA, as in Business of Agriculture, to learn more. That's landtrust.com/BOA.
Greetings and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Business of Agriculture podcast. It's me, your host, Damian Mason, with a fantastic episode for you today, because I'm talking to three women in agriculture, specifically Oregon agriculture. These women are the founders of the companies and are the family members that then let their spouses marry in too. So it's not the old thing about the outlaws marrying in. These are the actual family people. Also, they are in specialized industries that many of you probably don't think that much about. When you go to the hardware store, the nursery, the Home Depot, and you buy a bag of seed because you've got a bald spot in your yard, you're buying seed that these ladies produce. They are members of the Oregon Seed League, where I just did a presentation this morning. I'm recording this in December, and they had their annual conference. So we're talking about the business of grass seed. We're talking about how you actually grow something that then these other people buy at a consumer level and put in the ground so they can grow something. Interesting business. Also, great perspective on agribusiness from these three ladies. I got Shelley Bosehart Davis, I've got Brenda Furkatich, and I've got Macey Wessels. Welcome to the Business of Agriculture, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, let's kick off with the one that started it off. Brenda comes up to me, Ms. Furkatich, and she says, I keep up with your Business of Agriculture podcast and blah, 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 blah. So tell me about your business, Ms. Brenda.
Yes, well, I farm about 1,000 acres. I'm a third-generation farmer, and we grow grass seed, obviously, and then also hazelnuts, vegetables, vegetable seeds, and wheat and clover. So a diverse farm in our Willamette Valley.
Very, very diverse. And then what we should tell people here, we'll go to Macey because she's a native also. Macey, about where we are right now, because when people think of Oregon, especially back in the Corn Belt where I'm from, they think it's a bunch of pine trees, it rains every day, and there's a whole bunch of coffee sipping going on. Tell us what happens here in the Willamette Valley.
So in the Willamette Valley, it's a diverse, very, very diverse little valley. We have about 350 crops that we grow in this area. We have a lot of rainfall, and our summers are dry.
Tell me about the rainfall. What's a lot? Is it like 40 inches? I get 40 inches of precipitation between snow and rain in northeastern Indiana where I am. We don't need to irrigate. You get more than that here.
Well, no, we get about 40 inches a year here as well, but ours is unique in the sense that we don't get rainfall during our summers. That's what makes us so amazing at growing grass seed or other seed crops, is because we get 40 inches of rain for 9 months of the year, and then we get 2 almost completely dry months.
All right. Shelley Bosehart Davis, as the other person sitting here, you are in business with her, Macey, in a trucking business. So let's talk about that with Shelley. What do you do besides, you don't drive a truck, but you own a trucking company. You're a state representative, among other things, and you're in agriculture. Talk to me.
Yes. So in business with Macey, her and I 3 years ago bought out my parents' Bosehart Trucking that has 35 trucks and also a custom straw baling operation. So we will bale about 20 to 25,000 acres every summer. We take that grass straw, press it, containerize it, and ship it over to Korea and Japan as feed for cattle. And so we handle that operation, the exports, as well as the trucking and the straw baling.
So if you're listening to this, you're saying, wait a minute, these chicks, this is not just some little thing like where they go to the farmer's market with a half acre of cucumbers. These chicks are legit. Well, hell yes. You think they're on here because I just thought it was cute? No, because they're smart agrarian women. All right, so let's go back to my girl, Brenda. Your business, 1,000 acres that you and your husband operate. Parents still involved?
No, we actually bought them out about 5 years ago.
Okay, and so split it up. Grass, how much of the 1,000 acres is in grass for seed?
We're usually about 50% grass seed.
Okay, and then you talk about how that works, because there's people who are going to say, how does this work? So the customer goes to the nursery and buys 5 pounds of Scott's Turf Builder, or not turf, whatever the hell it's called, bluegrass, whatever this thing is. Talk to me about everything that happens between me going to the nursery and buying a bag of seed and you.
Yeah, so we plant into the ground, and we plant every about 3 to 5 years on average. So we actually leave it in the ground and harvest crops off that. So we're not turning the soil every year, which is an important piece to us. As we go through, then once those crops come out, we go in for harvest specifically. We cut the grass, like Macey mentioned. We have about 2 months of dry season, so our harvest is usually July through August. We go in and we cut it or swath it, and then we let it cure down, and then we come and combine it.
Yeah, and the person that's listening to this, because I know what that means, but a person that maybe like doesn't fully, maybe they work in the canning business or they're in some other thing, swathing it, because they might know what a combine is. That's the thing that combines cutting, threshing, and separation. You know, use it for soybeans, corn, wheat, everything. You can't do that with grass. Let's kick it to our girl Macey, because she knows that. Why can't we do it with grass? Why are we swathing this stuff?
Well, we're using what we have here, which is the dry weather. So we take and we swath it, which we do generally well at night or as there's still moisture in the grass seed itself. And that way the grass seed doesn't fall off the stem. Because if you try the literal seed, if you try to do it when it's too dry, the grass seed will actually fall onto the ground. And so we swath at night or when there's some moisture in the ground, and then use Mother Nature to then dry out that so that when we take the combine through, it separates naturally. So that's what we do.
And swathing, if you're not familiar, essentially it's a mower that then lays the entire plant out or everything you've cut into a windrow. Is that the way? That's the way to put it. Okay.
Exactly.
And then you're letting Mother Nature. You do that when it's still moist, so the seed doesn't shatter out of it. Okay. So the listener's saying, "Wait a minute, what is this all about? Grass seed? I mean, I don't get it." Well, they know what it looks like when it comes in the bag, but you're growing a grass that looks similar to my yard, except for it's in a field, and then you let it head out like
your neighbor's yard who doesn't mow. That's whose yard we're dealing with. Yeah.
So how tall is this stuff that you go out and swath?
Oh, anywhere from knee high to sometimes shoulder high with some varieties.
Okay. And if I let my yard go, would it ever look like that?
Oh, probably. I mean, most grasses want to go to seed. They want to grow, if you have the right conditions and things like that. But what's different is on a production side, we're putting in more nutrients, we're taking care of that crop, we're removing the weeds, so it will look a lot different in the seed sense than it would in a lawn.
Even though the nicest yard in the neighborhood where they've got Kim Lawn or whatever it's called, True Green coming out and spraying it, you guys are doing a lot more than that. You're touching it pretty regularly. Fungicides, insecticides, herbicides to make it a crop. How many pounds of seed am I getting off of an acre of this grass crop that you produce?
You're hoping for about 2,000 pounds per acre.
A ton per acre of seed. And it's also little itty bitty stuff.
Yes.
So how do I keep that from blowing out the back of the combine?
Well, the settings themselves on the combine are what keeps it from blowing out the back of the combine.
So you have some really tight screens on this.
Yes, you have very tight screens, and we also go very slow. So I would, in comparison to other combines that do other crops, this is a very slow process.
We're talking like 0.9 to 2.5 miles an hour.
Yeah, as opposed to 4 miles per hour if I'm shelling corn, let's say.
Yep.
Okay, so let me hear about this this thing from your perspective, Shelley. You are a grass grower, or you just do the straw?
Yeah, my family is. We'll farm. My dad and brother still farm grass seed and hazelnuts, and then we take over the straw side. So as they're talking about combining, the straw that gets blown out the back end of the combine now is grass straw.
Yep.
And so we will then come in as soon as that's done. We don't have to wait any. We can literally be in the same field with the combine.
Right, because it's dry.
As soon as the grower calls us and lets us know that it's ready to go, we can come in with a rake. We'll rake it into a windrow again, and then we come in with the baler, stack it up, and then we come in with our trucks, pick it up off the field into storage barns, and eventually to the press.
So obviously they've got what they need out. They got the seed, and I want to hear more about that in a minute. But since we're onto the straw, you're baling up the grass straw, and it's already dried out, and it's a byproduct. Obviously, you own the balers. You have custom people that come and do that for you.
We, in some operations, they have that custom, but we own all of our own balers ourselves.
You use the big rectangular squares, squares as they're called?
All of ours are Crohn's, and they're going to be the 3x4x8 bales.
And that, how much does that weigh when it's coming out of the field?
1,100 to 1,200 pounds on average.
1,100, 1,200 pounds, and then it goes into a warehouse. And then you said your straw goes overseas. So I could buy this off you if I wanted, but your marketplace essentially is Asia.
Yes, most of the time here in America, we use pasture. In Japan and Korea, they don't have pasture ground, so they're actually importing the fiber of the cow's diet.
Okay, so if they want to produce beef in some of these more population dense areas, they buy your stuff, and you're not even shipping it as that 1,100-pound bale either, right?
No, we're taking it to our press. We own 2 hay pressing machines, which takes the twine off of it, goes through a process, presses it, cuts it, slices it into either 25 kg, which is about 55 pounds, or we do a big bale, which is about 450 kg. Depends on what the customer wants. Put it into a container and eventually gets it.
So just the person might be saying, okay, I've driven down the road, I've seen these bales, and they weigh 1,100 pounds, and they're pretty tight. You're taking it and making it even more dense from there to where it's like a cube.
Basically doubling the density of it, and that's because containers are so expensive. We're trying to put maximize those containers, put as much weight in the container, which will maximize them about 55,000 pounds per container to then ship overseas.
Going back to my girl Brenda over here, 2,000 pounds of grass seed comes out of that grass field.
Yes.
Okay. That's a lot. I mean, that's a ton of grass seed, because grass seed don't weigh nothing. I mean, it's a 5-pound bag of it is this big. Mm-hmm. So 2,000 pounds of it. What happens after it's in your field, and then where does it go?
So we're going to truck it off, and we take it to a seed cleaner. So some growers own their own seed cleaner, some take it to a custom cleaner. And from there, we dump it into a pit. It goes into bins. It's either cleaned right away and removed of all weeds, seeds, chaff, all of that.
I've read the label. They don't guarantee it's 100%. They'll say this grass seed is...
I'll get you some grass seed.
They say this grass seed is... They say if you go to the hardware store and you buy yourself your 5-pound bag of grass seed, it says this is guaranteed to be 97% pure. So that means you're giving me 3% dandelion seeds and cocklebur.
Yeah, Poa annua.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes to a cleaner. Do you own your own cleaner?
My family is a partner in one, yes.
So it's a bit like when cotton people maybe cooperatively own their own cotton gin or something like that. Mm-hmm. So you guys own one, you use it yourself, the other owner uses it, and then you let people come and pay you to use
That's
the cleaner.
correct. Yep.
All right, so then do you take it back, or does it go from there on to the next value-added process?
No, then it moves on. So from that point, it's then bagged into usually 50-pound bags, and then put on pallets, and sometimes it's exported from the cleaner, and then other times the seed companies that we grow for, because we don't own our own seed. So the seed companies that we then grow for come and pick it up. Sometimes they put it in their own branded bag, and then they move it forward from there with their own value-added products.
Okay, so are you doing this on a contract?
Yes. Majority of everything we grow on our farm, everything we grow is on contract, and then I would say in the valley, it's a high percentage.
Macey, explain what that means to the person that's like, what are they talking about on a contract? That means that you didn't want to take the risk to put out, in her case, 500 acres of seed of grass and not having where to go with it, right? So you've already got your buyer locked in?
Correct. So in the case of like contracted seed, it's their technology. They're paying money and research to come up with different types of seed, because each seed has technology in it, whether it's salt tolerant, drought tolerant, or other specifics in that seed. So it's actually the seed companies that own the proprietary rights to that seed. So they contract with the growers to grow their seed, and so once it's cleaned, it is then sold to the seed company, who then at that point decides where it goes.
So what's interesting, every time I ever have a dialogue with non-ag people, we'll go over here to Shelley because she's got commentary, I know. They always say, there's a lot more to this than I thought. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't just some guy here with his bib overalls walking around barefooted with a pitchfork. This is actually a business. You would say, yeah, there's a hell of a lot going on behind the scenes. The customer gets really good seed to put out and make their yard, but there's all this stuff behind the scenes. Were you familiar with this growing up your whole life?
Yes, absolutely. And
do you have the dialogue with non-ag people like I just described?
Oh, absolutely. And I love talking about it because there's so much more than, just look at us three. We don't fit the profile of what somebody may have envisioned as a farmer. And so, but there's from the fuel guy to the warehouse guy to the tractor operator to the sales to every aspect of it, it's truly the business of agriculture.
And you know what? I really like that. That's a nice tie-in. So while we're at that little tie-in of her promoting my Business of Agriculture podcast, I'd like to remind you that in addition to the fantastic sponsor I have for this that you heard about in the intro, I also am working with Extreme Ag. If you are a farmer looking to up your game, especially in commodity production, you should check out the work I'm doing for Extreme Ag. Extreme Ag, that's XTREME ag.farm. yield setting, record setting farmers doing trials for some of the major companies that you probably deal with every day. And we're producing this content so that you can learn from their mistakes and also from their successes. So check out extremeag.farm and go to the Cutting the Curve podcast. All right, back to our girl Brenda, because I like to keep bouncing around because you guys have a lot of good stuff to say. This product then is the other thing that somebody might say. My neighbors in Arizona, is it true that Monsanto forces farmers to buy their seed? I'm like, no, that's not true at all. You've been watching too many documentaries that are ridiculous. Your seed that you start with comes from like another country. A friend of mine out here, a guy I was talking to, says that New Zealand, like they're getting seed. So the seed that you start with to grow the grass to make seed to then give to the consumer, where's it come from?
Comes from all over, but a lot also comes from Oregon. Where,
okay.
Yeah, right here.
So you come from your own stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a mix of it.
And there's a company that's developing it and saying, we want this to be drought tolerant, or one of them I've read is traffic. Like if you're going to plant some grass, it's going to get driven over a lot.
Correct.
Okay. Probably something specific for like football fields or something like that.
Yeah, there's breeding for darker color, there's breeding for salt tolerance, there's breeding for colder weather, there's breeding for soils in the south. So there's all different types of breeding. It's a very sophisticated thing, and the companies quite honestly spend millions. So the seed that makes it to the NFL football game has millions of dollars behind it for that type of breeding, so that you get it just the right green, and so it's just tolerant enough to take all that cleat action. So yeah, there's science behind it.
I like it. Cleat action. Cleat action. Now, I've never actually picked up a bag of seed that talked about cleat action. I like that. Okay, so how do you get paid? Does a contract give you ahead of time? They say, you're going to make this much per pound?
Oh, well, let's start from there. Okay, no, it doesn't.
Because, for instance, you're profitable. We're not going to pull that little farmer thing about, I ain't made no money. You're making money. But this was 2021 was a tougher year, I'm told, because your yields were down.
Right. So in Oregon, it's a little bit different. We have contracts, and they're pretty long-term contracts. I mean, like I said, 3 to 5 to 7, sometimes 10-year contracts. Within that contract are basically the parameters of the seed that you deliver. So weed seed tolerance, purity, all of that in there. If you meet that contract, then the market drives the yearly contract, or the yearly price, per pound. So we do have a bargaining association in Oregon that is active and meets every year and often creates a somewhat market price for the industry. But also seed companies individually with farmers are able to also get a price agreed upon. So it is tricky because you don't know the price of that as you're putting in all your inputs until much later in the year, sometimes after harvest even. And often our terms are not paid until the following May 1st is your drop dead deadline.
So you may be when do you put your seed in the ground?
In the fall.
And then sometimes you said you're actually using the same field 3 to 5 years, so you're not even putting in seed every year.
Correct.
But you're still harvesting beginning in May, June?
July.
Is it, how many harvests do you get?
Just one.
You only get one harvest.
Yes.
Because it's like a wheat in that regard or something like this.
Exactly.
So you get one harvest in July, and then you may not get your money until 10 months later?
Correct.
So you're carrying some float.
Yeah, big time.
So you might go to a lender, and then they might have to line you up with some operating money.
It's not unheard of. I would say more common than not that there's operating loans going around because you can't float that. Like you said, you can't be the bank for everybody.
The price was set on a per pound basis.
It is.
Price is set right before the harvest, actually.
Right before
the harvest is when the price is set. So you're planting without knowing what your price is.
Okay. That's tough.
Mm-hmm. Very tough. And just real quick with grass straw, it's the same thing. We don't know the price of that grass straw per ton. We pay on a per ton basis, and there's a lot that goes into that since everything's going to Japan and Korea, from exchange rates to what's coming out of Australia and China, and container rates. So there's a lot that goes into it, and those farmers aren't being paid until after the harvest as well.
You don't pay your people and you strike your deals for the straw.
Yes.
Like right now, it's December. Are you going and saying, hey, Brenda, I'm going to buy your straw next July?
We own it after the harvest, so we have it in our warehouses, and we're just paying for it after the harvest.
Are you but you're buying the stuff that's yet to come?
No.
You don't
we bought the stuff that came in.
We bought
Yep.
the stuff that came in, yeah.
You don't have it bought. You don't have it pre-bought. You don't have her acres pre-bought.
No.
You don't have acres lined up.
We have acres lined up just through relationships with farmers, but they're, and the straw side of things, typically not contractual.
It's not a contractual thing. So
It's a handshake.
you've got a handshake, and then if they say in July, I decided I don't want you to bale it, you're out.
Yes, that happens randomly, but relationship wins the day most of the time.
Can you tell me how much you're paying for that straw? The last time you did so?
Yeah, anywhere from, it depends on the variety, anywhere from $30 to $75 per ton.
Okay, and an acre of grass seed produces 5 tons?
Last year was bad.
3
but
tons?
anywhere from 1.5 to 4 tons per acre.
4 tons is a high end, 1.5 tons is a low end. Okay. All right. How important is the straw for your revenue?
It's very important. It's
Okay.
something that is a true byproduct.
Yeah.
We also don't have a lot of tools to manage the straw after harvest if we didn't bale it off.
Okay.
And it brings a lot of pests. So for us, we're looking at slugs, we're looking at voles, we're looking at creating an atmosphere that they want to be in.
Okay.
So we need to get that
So
residue
getting the
off.
straw gone is residue that would only just harbor pests or parasites or vermin or whatever for you, which is something you
Disease,
don't
yep.
want, disease.
Exactly.
And so you're getting income off it, plus you're getting rid of something that you need to get rid of anyway.
Correct.
So
Can I-
basically, you should pay her.
Well, I
It used to be, and I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, so historically, in the Willamette Valley specifically, we used to burn, but burning has been banned here. So
Well, you burn off the straw.
By regulation.
Then you don't.
By
then-
regulation.
Then you get rid of the problem, and
Yes.
you also didn't have to handle a product. You just went out there and lit it.
Yeah, we went out and lit it. It also took care of pests. It took care of putting nutrients back in the soil.
Seed bank, weed
seed
seed,
bank.
yeah.
The whole 9 yards. We used to burn this product. And so because of regulation, because of legislation, we no longer can burn off this byproducts. So farmers being farmers had to figure out what to do with it. So initially, they would actually pay people to come and bale it and try to get rid of it because this is a lot of product, right? We're one of the largest exporters of this product because it's so dense and there's so much of it.
Yep.
We had to figure out what to do with it. And so, like I said, it took farmers' initiative to go over and figure out a market
Yeah.
for this product that we could no longer just burn off.
And it doesn't stay local because there's less demand for it locally.
Correct. There's almost no demand for it locally.
So you got to find people that have less land and more hungry cattle that want this, because if you wanted to sell it to the feed yard up the road, they'd say, we already got what we need.
Exactly. There is no market for it here.
Do you, to get paid then from your Asian customers, Shelley, you have to then say, here's the total digestible nutrient value of this. You pulling feed samples and things like that?
We do pull feed samples. We also test for endophyte, which is a fungus that's bred into the grass. And so some varieties will have more than others. So we test for endophyte because the cows, they need to know that for the cows. So those are two things that
Isn't
we
that
test
what
for.
causes like hoof problems or something for cattle?
In fescue it calls it's fescue foot, and in ryegrass it's some sort of like shaking syndrome. So we test both of those products. Annual ryegrass doesn't have endophyte in it,
Yep.
so we do test on that. That's
Ironically, endophyte is what makes it a good seed itself. So endophyte is what makes the seed strong. So any kind of turf grass, anything that has to hold up to any kind of thing, should have endophyte in it for it to be a better seed.
Which is why fescue is planted on places that you drive over a lot that have to hold the sides of hills. It's not worth a damn for cattle feed, or it's bad for cattle feed, but it's great for holding the side of a hill that you can drive on.
Yes. So if you take the endophyte out, it's a great feed, but it won't hold up to cattle or any kind of traffic.
Right.
So,
Okay. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here with these agricultural lays. In addition to your grass thing, they've got a trucking company. You did hazelnuts. Always have?
Yeah, we planted our first orchard in 1990, so when I was a kid.
Okay. And now you're harvesting hazelnuts. Tell me what happens with that, just 'cause I'm curious.
Yeah, it's mostly actually
Goes to
also-
coffee, hazelnut coffee.
Yeah,
It's a flavoring agent.
It is a flavoring agent. But our biggest market is China. We sell about 60 to 70% of the Oregon hazelnuts go overseas to China.
Really?
And they actually brine them, salt them, and then they crack them just a little bit and eat them like pistachios for a salt or for a snack. Sorry.
Okay.
So that's where most of our hazelnuts go. But we are really trying to, we're putting in more acres because of blight-resistant varieties that are coming along through research. And so because of that, there's been this huge surge in planting of hazelnuts through this valley, or filberts. And because of that, we're able to get into more domestic markets.
Filberts.
Yes.
What is
They're
this?
also called filberts.
Originally called filberts.
A hazelnut is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here in Oregon, yes.
Okay, so I didn't know that. All right, so these hazelnuts then, you stuck a tree in the ground in 1990. When did you get your first product?
Well, it took about 10 years, and my dad, they're old variety, and my dad said, look, we got our first check, and my mom looked at him, and it was for $4. And she goes, great investment.
Yeah.
And they're still married, so I can make these jokes, but
Yeah.
she was just like, what in the world?
So how
because
many-
it wasn't a common crop at the time.
How many acres
So,
of hazelnut trees?
we're about 135 right now.
So it takes a lot of human hands to touch that?
You know, it's not too bad. We've started to automate as much as we can. There is still quite a bit of pruning and stacking and managing.
Stacking?
Stacking the pruning. the
Okay,
cuttings.
you don't grind them up or...
We don't. We push them and burn them.
Oh!
Well, we have a
Tell
lot.
people in Oregon you're burning stuff.
I know. We have a
Only
lot of
on
disease.
burn days.
Yeah. No, we have a lot of disease. I talked about the blight,
Yep.
and so we need to get that disease
Okay, so you
wood
push
out.
them in and then you burn them, and then these trees need pruned, so that's a lot of human hands. Using H2A labor, what are you doing on that?
No, we're just using local labor. But I'm talking we're low labor. In comparison to other places, we're hiring anywhere from maybe 6 to 7 people a year. We're 4 full-time employees, including myself and my husband, and then we hire about 6 or 8 other people additionally. So we're still very low labor.
You say that, remember, we're talking, the average person that lives in suburbia, and we'd say, oh, that's just a simple farmer. You've got 4 full-time owners/employees, plus you hire 6 or 8 people throughout the year. This is not some little teeny, this is not some little hobby.
No, it is absolutely not a hobby. This is our livelihood. This is our lifestyle. We love it, but you're right. It takes a lot to become a good business. I think that's one of the pieces that our generation and even the generation before is kind of morphing farms into. You have to be a business to survive. You have to have that.
There's no question. There's no question.
Yeah.
So from a diversification standpoint, let's just do a thing if you're okay with it. Percentage of gross revenue from each source. Grass seed is the ship that leads the fleet, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Grass seed, straw. How much? Grass seed is it more than half?
Yeah.
Is it 70%?
Oh, I'd say probably 65 to 70.
Okay, so let's call it 70% of revenue. Grass seed, grass straw that Shelley comes and makes.
It's
5 or 10% of revenue.
it's not a lot. I mean,
I'd say 2.
Okay, a single digit. Hazelnuts.
oh, it's upward of. Gosh, where am I at now on
I don't
my
know.
percentages?
28.
Jeez.
You got 28 remaining.
Okay, perfect. Let's give it
We
a.
haven't put in government payments yet.
Yeah, exactly. Let's give it an 18%, and the rest is other crops.
Okay, and those other crops being,
Wheat, clover for seed,
And
and
that's-
then also vegetable seeds and vegetables.
so you do grow some of the specialty stuff for that. All right,
Yes.
Macey over here chipped in and said she gave a percentage thing. Your farming operation, it consists of what?
Grass seed. Last year I grew peas, and so I do rotational crops as well.
Those rotational crops are because you've got to not have grass on those acres to get rid of pests and things that build up in
Correct.
the soil. So
Correct.
you tear up a field of grass that's been grass for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Correct.
And then you put in
Peas, wheat, whatever I feel like would be a great rotation for that ground.
and peas. What that peas like I put in my freezer, or are these a different kind of a pea?
No, these are sprouting peas, and they go overseas.
Okay.
So it's something that they eat, but it's
It's for human consumption, but
Yeah.
it's for Asian diets that not American diets.
Correct.
Okay, so how do you even know about that? Who came to you and said you should do this? How do you find a market for that?
There's different seed companies in the area that's all they specialize in is some kind of
so they said we need these, and then
Yeah.
they fill the market. Is that going on a contract also, Macey?
It is.
Okay, so you were already set on what you're going to make per pound or per bushel on those.
Correct.
All right. And then you teamed up with Shelley and started a trucking company. Shelley, what's the deal? Oh, you didn't start it. You bought it.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom and dad had this thing, and then you said, let's own a trucking company. And then
It'll be fun.
And so why did you decide to team up with Macey on that?
Yeah, wow.
You wanted to stick her with the work?
Wow, he's insightful.
Wow. Have you already read our story?
Incredible. Dad, mom started it in '83. My dad's farmed grass seed his whole life, but big family. He had to diversify, so they started in '83 with 2 trucks, grew it from there, and went back to farming. And along the way, as grass straw, as we were talking, developed
Yep.
in this valley, he bought balers and he trucked it, and then he bought barns, and then he stored it, and then he built a press, and then we became vertically integrated. But about that time, I was getting out of college, and with a business degree and international sales degree, and we went direct. And so I came into it at that time, and so we've done the whole process and kind of grew it from
So you talk about
mid-90s.
You got some integration going on, but you do own some acres of grass.
Mm-hmm. My dad does, yes.
And so your involvement is you might come into that or buy it or however that thing should work out. Who knows? We know how these things happen. But you do own trucks. You own some balers. You also contract out and have other people do balers. You own not most of the land. You're covering 25,000 acres. That's other people's.
Yep.
Do you own the press? Your father
yes.
owns the press?
Yes. Yep. So our family owns the press and the international sales
Is
company.
that something that you're going to buy?
Yes, eventually.
And then you're going to bring Macey in on that?
Yes.
So the press and then the warehousing.
Yes.
And then what else is there?
The international sales
Like
company.
it's a company that essentially it doesn't have a lot of assets though.
Correct.
It's essentially it's a business entity in that it does things.
Yep.
What else? Is that enough diversification?
We actually did just recently bought another company, trucking company, to diversify. It's the first time we've done anything outside of agriculture.
Is that you and Macey?
Yes. Mhm.
Macey, tell me about this trucking thing. Did you always want to be in the trucking business?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know anything about really the trucks. I had worked for a seed company for quite a few years and also ran their logistics while I was there. So I always enjoyed working with truck drivers, I guess. But Shelley said, hey, there's a business opportunity. You should look at this. And I said, okay. And so really I learned as I went.
Since we call it the Business of Agriculture podcast, and if you don't want to divulge these numbers, you don't have to. But again, I'm always struck by people that live in the suburbs and have a nice house and a decent job, and they think that they have money going on. I say, you realize I know people in ag that at any given moment have $1 million of capital just blowing in the wind. And it's not carelessly blowing in the wind. It's just that it's a crop. It's a trucking company. It's whatever. You've got a lot of capital deployed or a lot of things going on. Mm-hmm. Acres, then the trucks. What's your split on that, even on a percentage basis?
I have about 450 acres that I farm personally, and then the rest is split with Shelley. I'd say time-wise, I spend 70% on the trucking side and 30% on my own farming side, and then it's probably 50-50 as far as what I make. As far as revenue.
Yeah.
As far as revenue. Right now, all we do is draw salaries from our trucking business because we're paying for it, and we'll be paying for it for a long time.
What about the farming operation? What's the labor look like? She's got herself and her husband and 2 other family people and then 6 or 8 employees. What's your farming operation got in way of how many people does it take to keep it going?
On my farming operation, it's myself, and then I'm looking right now for probably 1 full-time person that will work there year-round, and then I hire 3 during the summer. And then I also use my daughter's 15, so I also use quite a few high schoolers for things like pruning and different things like that.
And you can get them.
Yeah, but again, that has to do with being local and sourcing local. For instance, in our trucking company, we hire about 30 to 40 kids during the summer. That's unique in our area because you have to get special permits. Mm-hmm. And so Shelley is like a master at working through. And
well, she got elected as state representative, and we know then where the graft works and how you can start finagling the power structure and walk things through the state house.
She didn't become a legislator until after we bought the business. So we were already, she had already navigated all the red tape of working with teenagers.
The 450 acres, owned, partial rented?
Partial owned, partial rented.
Okay, what's the ownership situation look like? Did you inherit some of that, or you just started buying it when you were young?
No, I came back to the family farm maybe 15, 20 years ago, right when my dad had a heart attack. And so I was actually on the family farm for 5 years, and at that time I bought a piece of ground right next to my parents. Mm-hmm. And so I started farming that. And then the rest of it is leased ground that I have long-term leases with.
Dollars in play at any time, Shelley, besides trucking you're going to be buying, what's it cost? What do you think it would cost right now if you bought the thing that presses these bales?
$1.5 million, just one machine.
And that doesn't include the acres or the...
that's just the machine.
That's not the structure
that's
that it sits in?
That's just the hay pressing machine, but every baler is going to be, what is it now, probably $180,000 to $200,000 for one baler.
A big square baler.
And that doesn't include the tractor to pull it. Yeah.
Right, and we have 8
You have 8 balers.
Yeah.
8 balers, and then you have the tractors as well.
Yep.
And then you've got to keep those crewed.
And we have 8 rakes.
Yeah.
And stackers
and
and,
3
the
stackers.
trucks and
Yeah.
the different,
Squeezes.
You have $3 million worth of machinery.
more.
4.5.
4.5 on the farm machinery. That doesn't count the trucks.
No, that includes the
That
trucks.
includes the trucks.
But not steer.
Trucks aren't worth much after so many years.
Right.
So unless you have new stuff.
Compared to a tractor and a hay baler, a semi-truck is actually, or even a semi-truck and a flatbed is kind of.
5 years after you buy a truck, it's pretty much obsolete. 5 years after you buy a tractor, it still has value.
Yeah, right. Brenda, what have we not talked about in this podcast? Talking about everything. We talked about women in agriculture and Oregon agriculture. We were talking a lot about seed. What have we not covered that the listener needs to know? Because you're a blogger, you're a storyteller. What do they need to know? What's the person that's listening to this? And I don't mind this is frozen up, by the way, because we're putting stuff on.
Okay.
You look nice in there, though.
Yeah, it's a good look.
Yeah.
All right. What do they need to hear? What do they need to hear?
Oh man.
What thing do you touch or do every day that the average person's like, holy crap, I never even would have thought of that?
Who's your audience, though? Is
the
it
audience?
non-farmers or farmers?
I don't know. We have to edit this out right now since she just starts talking like that. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Everything.
I
Probably
thought everybody.
we are anyway. That's
Okay.
fine. I wrote down the time. Probably 1/3 farmers, 2/3 ag professionals.
Okay.
Shouldn't bite your nails. It's a bad habit.
That was a terrible habit.
Probably pick up smoking instead. All right. So no, the point is there's probably stuff that we haven't covered. What have we not covered? And I'll tell her to start picking up here. 3522 to.
I think Oregon is a very unique place.
Okay, perfect. Let's go with regionality.
Okay.
Okay. Monica, we're going to pick up now. I'll give you the time codes. We're going to edit between about 35:20 and right now at 36:20 roughly. 3, 2, 1. All right, so you're 3 women in agriculture operating in Oregon. There's a lot of people that work in states that are not as, say, legislative, regulatory. I get the impression that probably you had to jump through a few more hoops here, but you also have a unique climate. You've got some crops that we would never grow in most of the other part of the world. Things are a little different out here. Give it to me from your perspective, starting with Brenda.
Yeah, absolutely. Oregon is a very unique place, especially, we have a very diverse state, but especially in the valley here, we have this really interesting, we're farming right next to cities. We have a land use system in the state that protects farmland, but we also have a lot of regulation that comes down on us that is, we're often seen as sort of let's go and try it in Oregon and see if we can shut things down in Oregon. And I think that's been a real challenge for us.
Macey, real quickly, because she says the valley, to the person that's not worked out here like me. So I've worked inland, if you will, where you go over the Cascades and all of a sudden it gets high and dry and rolly and it looks like, what the hell? This isn't what I thought. I tell her only the western 1/3 of Oregon looks like what people think Oregon looks like. And then you're there's pine trees and there's moisture, and then also in the valley. Tell me where the valley goes from. South of Portland to where?
Just south of Portland to just south of Eugene. It would be so it's maybe 120 mile stretch ish.
And 20 miles wide?
20 miles wide,
Okay.
give or take. If you head to the west, we hit the coast, and if you head to the east, you hit a mountain range. And if you keep going east in our state, you will hit desert, high desert, low desert, all of it. So we have a very diverse state.
And almost all the population and almost all the dollar value-added agriculture happens in this area right here.
Correct.
The people are all between Corvallis, Eugene, Salem, and Portland.
Correct.
And the moisture is here, and the crops are here.
Correct.
And then when you go out there, it's just the hinterlands.
When you go out there, you hit cattle and wheat country. So.
Or nothing.
Or nothing.
A lot of nothing.
There is nothing.
Shelley, what's different about agriculture? What's different about agriculture and being in business in agriculture in Oregon versus other places? You've only ever lived here, presumably.
Well, a little bit somewhere else just for a year or two. But here we are geographically located to have massive opportunity. We have the Pacific Ocean and we've got Asia on the other side. And so if we could, we have challenges in our port systems, in our transportation, legislatively, they're going after diesel, they're going after all of those things that we just talked about. But we can grow the best in the world. We just have to be able to get it to market.
And then there's also the environmental aspect. You said going after diesel. Wasn't there something on the Columbia River so that you couldn't send barges down it because a salmon was imperiled or some such thing?
There's always something from the spotted owl back in the 80s to cap and trade that we fought in the legislature in 2019, in 2020. So there is always something here. It will always be something. And so we have to be smart, efficient, and we are not sure what's going to be around the regulatory corner for us.
Some logging people about 20 years ago when the whole spotted owl thing was going on, because it was shutting down the entire timber industry, came up with a T-shirt that said, if two teenagers can mate in the back of a Ford Pinto, why does a spotted owl need 10,000 acres?
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
That is awesome.
All right, so closing it up here on the Business of Ag podcast with three smart ladies in agriculture, in Oregon agriculture. It's Shelly Bosehart Davis, Brenda Furkatich, and Macey Wessels. Last thing, what Oregon's uniqueness. What else did I not cover, Macey, that you think that we forgot to cover? You got a lot going on. Are you excited about the future?
Ooh, so I think right now it's hard to look at it from the future just because our politics here are very unfavorable for what we do. So
Trucking, agriculture,
all of
the
it.
politics of Oregon would
Yes.
rather have everybody just hangs out and smokes dope and drinks coffee.
Parks and wetlands.
Yes.
And hikes
We
and
have
bikes.
a lot of people that move into our state because it's green and because it's beautiful and then want to change it. So that happens all of the time. And so it's a little scary. I think that when you look towards retirement, this is maybe a state that if you didn't have farming, you definitely would leave.
Yeah,
And
you
we're
would.
seeing it. And
You
we're
would.
seeing it.
Yes.
You would, yeah. So it's the old flight. So there's okay. So there's some challenges with geographically. There's challenges politically. Are you excited about you still being in business? As a woman in agriculture, you've done well. You're okay. You're happy.
I love doing what I do. I love working with the truck drivers. I love working in agriculture. I love all the farmers. I love the people that I get to work with. I love working with Shelley. I love all of that.
right.
I hate our state politics
Okay.
and I hate our regulation.
I like it. Brenda, this is a little bit, I'm a touch older than you, but there was a time when people would have tried to say that women aren't welcome in agriculture. Have you ever had that? Because it doesn't seem like that's the case. Certainly doesn't seem the case to me, but you give me your perspective.
Yeah, I think Oregon's a unique place. Like I've never felt like, why are you here kind of a feeling. I think Shelley has often said that she looks forward to the day when women in agriculture is no longer a headline.
Yeah.
Because we have actually a huge percentage of women in this state who
Yeah.
are participating, who are coming to meetings, who are learning
Yeah.
right alongside their husbands or, right behind their dads or right behind their moms and that sort of thing. So I think it's changing fast in Oregon, and I love to see that.
Shelley, one thing that we not cover, we not talk about that I forgot to ask about the business that you guys do, because I'm really impressed with what happened here. Is a lot of forward thinking with what you three are doing, and I haven't heard any excuses. I've liked it, but what did I not ask you that I should have asked?
I hope that people are looking at agriculture as a career and not just the farming side of it. It's massive. It could be the sales part of it internationally. It could be in ag banking. It could be in fuels. It could be in research. And so I just hope that we continue to be voices and faces and be part of that future of agriculture, because it's going to be there. I don't know what it looks like exactly, but it's going to be there.
Well, I think you three are going to inspire some people, and I hope you do. And the entrepreneurial side of it, I don't know if we necessarily need any more ag bankers. I've also said I'm not sure we need more. I'm not sure. Well, I'm just because it's pretty saturated. Frankly, it really is. Yeah, we'll need some, but we also the entrepreneurial side of it. When you talked about hey, there's this byproduct. Let's bail it up. Let's compress the hell out of it, and let's find a market for it. That's the kind of entrepreneurial stuff that I think is inspirational that'll come out of all this. Her name's Shelly Bosehart Davis. She is a state representative here in Oregon. She also is a farmer, an entrepreneur, and a trucking company owner. If they want to get a hold of you for any reason, how do they find you? I'm looking at maybe going to your website.
Just Google that, Shelly Bosehart Davis, and you will definitely find some way to get a hold of me for sure. On Twitter, Bosehart Davis Ag. Also on Instagram, Bosehart Davis Ag. On Facebook, Shelly Bosehart Davis. And
then Macey has the trucking company, Bosehart Davis, and that's Bosehart, B-O-S-H-A-R-T, BoshartTrucking.com. Or if they want to get a hold of you, is that the way to start?
Yeah, Macey at BoshartTrucking.com.
And then if anybody has a question to you, and you have a blog also, Brenda Furkatich, talk to me about it's Or Farmer. Talk to me.
Yes, Oregon farmer, OR farmer. And then also Brenda Fergatich at kirschfamilyfarms.com.
Nobody is going to ever
No
know how
one.
to
Okay,
do
okay.
How
Go
about
to nuttygrass.com, Nutty grass.com, and then you can click the contact me, and then that's where I will be, and I will answer back.
This has been a lot of fun. I thank you guys for being on the Business of Agriculture. That's Macey, Brenda, and Shelley, and maybe they'll come and talk to me again in a couple of years about their next business venture. Till next time, it's the Business of Agriculture. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
This episode of The Business of Agriculture was brought to you by Land Trust. Landowners, just like you, are increasing profitability by adding recreation to their portfolio of land use. Millions of recreators actively seek wide open spaces for birdwatching, photography, hunting, fishing, horseback riding, and many other farm and ranch activities. Owners of farm and ranch properties are partnering with Recreation Access Network Land Trust. Land Trust is an online platform connecting recreators with landowners for outdoor experiences on their land to increase profitability. Visit landtrust.com/BOA, as in Business of Agriculture, to learn more. That's landtrust.com/BOA.